Hi there, my name is Mark and I like to make weird 3D animations. Today I'm making a golden woman with a silver heart. The idea popped into my mind and I said, you know what, let's do it. Blender 3.6 is my 3D software of choice, and as every Blender user knows, we start by deleting the default human size rectangle. Mainly because I'm lazy, I'm going to import the woman's model from my previous animation and reset the position. I will also import an HDRI from HDRI Heaven to have some quick light setup. For this project, I actually know the camera I want, so I'll set the focal length to 85mm, which I like best for portraits, and then position it roughly. Next, I'll adjust some of the body proportions to better suit what I have in mind. I'll widen the breast, reduce the waist, and enlarge the hips, make the neck longer and her hands a bit smaller. By the way, I'm using the Human Generator addon, which is a paid addon, but there's also free options like Lub-dub, which work great too. I will also adjust some of the facial features. Let's download the hard model from TurboSquid and import it to the scene. Make it the appropriate size and roughly position it in the right place. Please note that I'm not trying to be anatomically correct, I'm taking an artistic license, which is another way to say that I don't know the first thing about anatomy. I'll throw a silver material to the heart and pattern it to the armature so they move together. Then I'll position the woman as I want. This is a time-consuming process of adjusting the bones in different directions until you get the position you want. I want her to be holding her heart with the right hand and the other hand on the belly. It's also possible that I was making up this position as I was going. Also, I want her spine to be slightly twisted looking at the camera. Finally, I will readjust the camera until I'm happy with the result. I'd like to use a different gold material. I'm going to use another paid add-on called Modular Metals. Again, you can use free materials from texture.com or other platforms. The process of selecting a material consists of trying different options until I like what I see. Part of the process is going obsessively back and forth between different options and tweaking them over and over. As a final touch, I'm going to make a series of tweaks and twists in this noodle soup that I definitely understand, and done! We have a shiny golden woman! Wow! Now it's time for sculpting, which is not my strongest suit. I'll grab these veins and extend them across the chest as I feel. I'll try to stick them to the body as close as possible. Next I'm going to switch to the actual position of the woman and readjust the heart. Because she's not going to move too much, I don't need to worry about the veins deforming with body movement. During the process of making this animation, I will refine over and over these vessels, making them thicker and fixing mistakes as I find them. Okay, now let's make the heartbeat. This is easily done by using the wave modifier. By tweaking these parameters, I can get to give the illusion it's beating. I will paint the tips of the veins so the effect is less evident in these areas. Red areas will get 100% of the effect, blue ones get 0%. That way the blood spreads as it gets far from the heart. For extra creepiness, I want the body to surround the veins, as if they were sticking out of it. For that, I will painfully paint with the touchpad in my laptop a displacement mask. I will keep refining the mask for a couple of hours until I realize that it looks much better if I invert the height. I'm not happy with the silver material of the heart, so I'm going to test other options. I want it to be more shiny and reddish. I'll use modular metals again and tweak this preset to change the color and add some BAM texture. I'm using a similar material for the hair, eyebrows and eyelashes. And with that, it's time for a test render.
Hey, that's pretty good!
I want to shade the lips differently, they look too flat to me right now. For that, I'm using a lip mask to change the roughness and how shiny they are. Because I have an obsessive personality, I'm going to spend a painful amount of time creating a custom mask for the nails and applying the same shading. And believe me when I say that makes a total difference in the final render. I had an idea during lunch break, so I'm going in a different and creepier direction from the original plan. I'm going to start by modeling an injector. This is a simple process of refining the cylinder, extruding and beveling some edges. Then I will add a curve and adjust it. By the way, I have no idea what's going on with these colors when I select the vertices of my curve. I'll give some depth to the curve and we have a tube. Time to stick the injector in her head. I'm adjusting the shape of the tube to give the feeling it's hanging from the ceiling. I'll connect one end to the head bone and hook the other to an empty, so it deforms appropriately with the movement. A quick material shading for the injector, and I will reuse the hard material for the tubes. Now it's just a matter of duplicating and repositioning the tubes. I want the injectors to be stuck on her skull, so I'm going to use another displacement mask to create these horns, bumps, I'm not sure what to call them. And this process is something you have to do only once, unless you forget to save the image, Blender crashes, and you realize hours later that you lost it and have to redo it from scratch. I'm also going to spend a huge amount of time slightly coloring her eyes reddish. I'm going to give her arm a number 3 mark. I'll use another displacement mask with a stencil to create my 03. I will add this noise distortion node to give the edges some variation and make them feel more natural. By no means, I tested the QR code to decide I didn't like it, then proceed with the original idea of a barcode, which I didn't like either, and go for a simple 03 in the end. Because this is my first time recording a video like this, I lost the recording showing how I animated the body, face and camera, you know, the trivial things. So instead, I will just roughly showcase what I did. For the camera, I created the first and last keyframe, then created a middle one and jumped into the graph editor to smooth the transitions, avoiding any evident jumps. I also animated the depth of field and focus, so it starts focusing on the heart and moves to the eyes. For the body animation, I move around the bones of the arms, shoulders and hands, creating keyframes. Once again, I smoothed all the transitions on the graph editor to get a more organic, less robotic movement. For the face, I added the blinking, which is just a keyframe for the open position and one for the closed position, and then repeat them. Then I animated the mouth, which in this case is just a couple of keyframes. This is in fact the second iteration. Initially, she was doing something completely different that I ended up hating, but no one will ever see that. Finally, I used a wave texture, connected it to the tube's displacement, and animated the position so there was some liquid pouring into the head. I want to add something in the background, so I thought it could be suitable to have a couple of chambers with bodies inside, as if the liquid being poured into her head comes from other people. So I'm going to create a cylinder, give it a simple shape and shading, then use real-time materials for the glass, making it bluish. Add a light and clone my woman in a different position. Then I'll make the woman in the chamber silver, duplicate the whole thing, and make a variation in the position of the woman in the second chamber. To make them float, I'm using a scene modifier on the graph editor applied to the z-axis of the armature. I will also create a plane to act as the floor and wall and throw this hex tile material. I'm adding a couple of bigger tubes on the ground, following the same procedure as the tube on the head. And that completes the scene. I'm going to add a tiny reflection on the eyes to make them feel more alive. Finally, let's spend an unfathomable amount of hours figuring out the lights of the scene. I will remove the HDRI and end up using two different lights, one main or key light and one fill light to soften the shadows. The chamber's light is acting as a backlight in this case. I will also add a volume fog to spread the light and increase my render time significantly. You can see the comparison between these two test renders. I'll make the main light warmer so the gold is more golden, I guess. After my test renders, I've realized that the veins should move accordingly with her body. I'll create a shape key for the final position, trying to match the first position, and animate the keyframes. Then I will screw it up and move backwards one of the veins. But don't you worry, I will realize it just after posting it to Instagram. With that done, it's time to jump into Davinci. Because my laptop is very slow, I only use 128 samples per frame, and there's a lot of noise in the background. I'll use the flicker and the noise nodes to fix it. Then I'm just adding the prism effect with a mask to add a little bit of chromatic aberration and vignette. Then I make a color boost because some saturation is lost during export, upload and compression. And finally a bit of grain to avoid compression artifacts. I just noticed that from frame 250 to 300 the tubes stop pumping liquid, so I'll fix that and re-render that section. I will apply the same color correction nodes and a mask to blend them in. As a final touch, I will add this dust particles footage on top and blend it so it has a little bit more sense of depth. With that, it's time for the final render. So that's all. If you like this video, please consider subscribing for more. Remember to smash that like button, schedule your renders for tonight, and I'll see you next time.